Hey guys, before we start the video, I just wanted to quickly jump in and let you know that this is part 2 of a conversation that we started a couple months ago once the pandemic hit. And now that the world is opening back up and things are slowly getting back to normal, what do you do? How do you move forward? How do you continue to protect your company, your brand, and your strategy? And that's really what we're going to pick up on in part 2 in this video. Now, there is other current events happening, and I wanted to make sure that you realize that as I'm going through the video and I'm referencing the current crisis, what I mean by that, I'm referencing the pandemic, COVID-19, and the effects that it's had for small businesses and entrepreneurs. So I just wanted to clarify that, especially for those of you who are watching in the future and might be like, what's going on? This is what's going on. And so just transparency, clarity, just wanted to make sure that everyone is on the same page. And with that, we will jump into the video. What's up, familia? In today's episode, we're going to pick up the chat that we had a couple weeks ago when we were talking all about the 5 business strategies you need to be deploying when a crisis hits. And in this part, we're actually going to be talking about 3 awesome strategies that you need to be deploying right now, whether or not you're a small business owner who's been affected by the crisis, or you're an entrepreneur, or you are just at home trying to figure out whether or not you want to go back to work or start your own business. These strategies are really going to help you move forward. And honestly, they're principles that you should be implementing, crisis or not. So I'm really excited to jump in. Let's do it. So if you haven't had a chance to join us for part 1 of this episode, definitely click that pause button. Go back to the first part. We'll link it in the show notes as well. And watch that first because it's really going to set the foundation. It's going to set the tone for the entire workshop. So definitely check that out. Now, just to recap, in the previous part, we talked about the first 2 strategies, really important aspects of growing a business, really just pivoting or just sustaining growth throughout a crisis. And that first strategy was get in the right headspace. You really want to make sure that you're putting pieces in place so that no matter what the circumstance, no matter what the environment, no matter what comes at you, you're staying strong, you're staying sane, and you are staying profitable. And really the only way of doing that is by being intentional every single day, right? Create an environment, whether it be through your morning routine or your workday startup routine, where you're doing intentional things that put you in the right headspace, that allow you to have a growth mindset, a resiliency mindset, and that strengthen your mental capacity for taking on difficult situations. In my life, I found that just having a clear morning routine has really helped in this arena. And if I am intentional about having my 15 minutes of meditation and listening to a motivational tape or reading a motivational book, or just being intentional about spending 10 to 15 minutes every single day before I start my work to get in the right headspace, to really put myself in a mindset that allows me to serve and to really just become a better, more efficient entrepreneur, it really makes a big difference. It makes a big difference for how I show up in the world. It makes a big difference for how I serve. It makes a huge difference for how I lead my team. But it starts with me and it starts with you. It starts with us being intentional, right? About putting our mindset at the forefront of our rituals and our routines, and having that daily practice of setting ourselves up to win from a mindset perspective as a standard. When your standards are elevated, you start leveling up. And it's more important than ever that we actually take the time to get in the right headspace. Now, strategy number 2 is very obvious, but so many of us don't actually put this into practice. It's to make a plan. And if you don't have a plan yet, you really want to have one. Whether, you have come a long way in this crisis and you've just stepped up and you've stretched yourself and you've really figured out how to win, which I'm so excited about if that's you, or you've really struggled and it's been a daily battle to get in the right mindset and think about, future plans and actually get through day-to-day circumstances and situations. I want you to be in the habit or create the habit, right, of planning, of really thinking about how do you intentionally work your plan. And here's the thing. entrepreneurs who are successful, people who operate at a higher level, whether they are, entrepreneurs that are startup entrepreneurs or they've been at it for a while, or maybe they're even executives that are leading big corporations, they make it a habit to work their plan regardless of the circumstance, regardless of the situation. It's one of the main reasons why we have our members inside the business lounge actually go through what we call your prosperous new year plan. Every single year, at the beginning of the year, we're just planning the year. We're really taking time to figure out what our content strategy is going to look like, what our marketing strategy is going to look like, how we're going to create more profit, how we're going to grow the team, how we're going to establish and solidify our team culture, how we're going to serve and give back, and how we're going to measure all the things that we want to accomplish during the year. And so when it comes down to it, having a plan really makes sense whether you're in a crisis or not, right? Working your plan and then not allowing circumstances to derail you is so important. Of course, you need to be flexible. Of course, things will change. Of course, there will be wrenches thrown in and there will be obstacles and challenges. But if you didn't go into this crisis with a plan, you're probably having a much harder time than if you had taken the time to plan ahead at the beginning of the year. And so I'll tell you this. We have never seen our plan actually be as profitable as it has been this year. Chris and I have been very serious about, and Chris is my husband, if you didn't know, we're super serious about planning, and executing on our plans. And so as soon as this crisis hit, the reason we've been able to grow, the reason we've been stable, the reason why we've been able to hire and actually do so many of the things that most companies are pulling back on, right? We're seeing a ton of companies like pull their advertising dollars, pull their marketing dollars, lay off people in mass quantities. And that has a lot to do with the industry that you're in and what you do and how you serve. But at the end of the day, having a plan has allowed us to remain stable in this economy. It's allowed us to actually grow, and it's allowed us to do things that most companies can't do. Because while everyone's freaking out, while everyone's pulling their ad dollars, their marketing budget, their advertising budget, we're doubling down. We're working the plan. We're still doing the same things that we planned on doing in January before we had any idea that this was going to happen. So work your plan. Really create consistency and train yourself to look at any situation and maybe pivot and be able to be flexible, but still have a structure of foundation that's guiding you, that's leading you, that's allowing you to see the bigger picture. And that'll also remove like the distractions and the negativity and all the potential chaos that comes about when there's unexpected circumstances that arise. Now let's talk about strategy number 3, which is where we're going to get super practical. And if you're pragmatic, like I am, you appreciate the step-by-step process. And so strategy number 3 is all about pivoting your marketing. And this one's obvious, right? So much has happened since this whole shutdown began, since quarantine was established. And I'm sure by now you've pivoted your marketing. I'm sure you've created content around different topics. And if you haven't, it's not too late. However, this still applies to the rest of the year. It really is a great opportunity for you to look at what's working and what's not working and where is the opportunity right now. In a previous episode on the YouTube channel, I talked about how crazy it's been that with this whole quarantine, right, the consumption on different platforms like YouTube and Facebook has gone up to 70%. It's crazy how many eyeballs there's on these platforms, how much attention people are giving to social media. And that presents an incredible opportunity because people are looking for opportunities to be distracted, to, look for inspiration, to learn a new skill, to just feel like they have reprieve from the constant bombarding of information that's really just all over, right? It's all around us all the time. And so I really think that there's so much opportunity in this particular strategy. Now, I'll tell you a quick story. My husband and I recently purchased a jet ski. And when we were chatting with the folks who were selling the jet ski, they're an older couple, such a great pair of people. I mean, just really great people. They even prayed with us when we purchased it for like the safety and security. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's so sweet. But the whole thing is they were telling us like, oh my goodness, we had no idea that you could learn so much on YouTube. I'm telling you, like we've just become totally obsessed with the platform. We're on it all the time looking for new information and learning new things. And I was just like, wow, this is so cool because, this whole situation, if there's, one positive from that is that people are discovering the platform. They're just understanding the environment and all the things that are possible when they access these awesome resources that we have in this day and age. So it's such a cool reminder of like, okay, this is a crazy opportunity for creators, no matter what platform you're in, right? Whether your thing is Instagram or you're totally into podcasts, or maybe you're just writing, the written word on a blog. All of those areas are still garnering way more information, way more attention, way more eyeballs. And so this is the perfect time to pivot your strategy. And the first place to do that is to position yourself for growth. What the heck do I mean by that? And what does it have to do with creating a solid content strategy or pivoting your content strategy? Here's the deal. When you double down on a particular platform that's already worked for you or that your audience already exists in, you have so much more energy and you can focus so much more of your attention into positioning yourself for growth. And so whatever that means for you, I just want you to have the commitment of saying, okay, I see the opportunity. I understand that this is a once in a lifetime situation. Hopefully this will never happen again, but we're going to do the best that we can with, the current circumstance. And we're going to look at the bright side and we're going to look at the positive. And I'm just going to position myself for growth. I'm going to double down. I'm going to educate myself. I'm going to learn new strategies. I'm actually going to test and try new things. I'm going to do it. I'm going to commit to being consistent. I'm going to commit to creating a system that allows me to create content on a consistent basis on that platform and subsequently actually attract more leads, more sales for my brand and my company. Positioning myself as a leader on that platform is a huge opportunity for growth. And so again, it doesn't matter what platform you're in, whether it's TikTok and it's just exploding right now, or you've been on YouTube for a while and like this is the opportunity for you to grow and just double down, maybe create more content or create higher quality content, or you're doing blogging or podcasting, or maybe you're on Instagram or you're on Facebook or you're doing a Facebook group. It doesn't matter what platform you're in. You really just want to double down and position yourself for growth. Do the things consistently that'll enable you to grow. Do some extra research before you're just creating content, out of the blue. Make sure that you have a clear workflow so that you can pump out more content consistently. Make sure that you're sharing and leveraging the content that you already have and repurposing that content. There's so many strategies that you could be deploying right now. Just pick one or two and double down on them. Position yourself for growth. And really that's a mindset shift. It really starts with deciding and committing to stay consistent and to do the things day in and day out that are going to allow you to continue positioning yourself for growth, especially in times like this, where you have all the attention, all the opportunity. There's so much information and resources online that you could leverage. The time is now. Let's do it. And so now that you've committed to making, that reframe and positioning yourself for growth, now we're going to talk about amplifying your content calendar. What does that look like? Everyone's talking about pivoting. And, I think we've pretty much pivoted at this point. We've got an idea of what direction we're going. Now it's time to get practical with what do we do from this point on? Like, how do we take what we've learned during this crisis and take it to the next level? So when it comes to amplifying your content calendar, I want you to move your hard-hitting pieces to the front of the line. Meaning, if you know that maybe you've already outlined your content for the next month or two, or maybe you've outlined it for the whole year, which is amazing. Pull those pieces of content that are most relevant right now. Do an extra, 20 minutes of research and figure out what are people searching for? What does my audience actually want to hear from me? Pull your newsletter, like pull your email list with a newsletter, send out a survey, post on Twitter, post a poll on Instagram, ask your people what they want, hear them out, and really start moving those pieces to the front of the line. It's one of the first things that we did when it was time to just amplify our content calendar and figure out what we're going to be sharing. We scratched, about 2 months worth of content that we already had planned out. And so we totally repositioned the pieces that we knew were going to make the biggest impact. Number 2, ask yourself, is your content discoverable? Is the content that you're creating right now, how are people going to find it? How are people going to find it? If you're a part of the Business Lounge membership, you know that we talk about this all the time. There's searchable content, and then there's relational content. There's content that builds your relationship with your existing community that helps deepen those relationships. And there's content that helps you get found, that helps you get discovered, that helps you put yourself at the forefront of your audience and attracts new people into your community. And so often we're only building relational content all the time. And so we're just, creating those tweets day in and day out, but we're not doing any activity, or we're not creating content that enables us to get discovered. That's why search is so important. So doubling down on platforms that allow that discoverability factor is super important. And if you're on a platform that maybe isn't search driven, like let's say you're on Twitter or you're on Instagram or you're on Facebook, then figure out ways that you can get discovered. Leverage your network, right? Start maybe doing collabs with other platforms, other brands on that platform that have a larger audience, and get in front of that ideal audience. Like get in front of those people. Maybe do some kind of awesome takeover on Instagram, or pitch yourself to get interviewed live on, another Facebook page or another Facebook group. Get in front of those people, create content that's discoverable. Super key, super important. Number 3, break the rules. You might have set yourself up for some serious rule following from the, get-go, but the reality is this is a time to experiment. This is a time to think outside the box and look for ways to stand out in a crowded marketplace, right? There's so much that we could dive into in terms of breaking the rules, but I want you to define what that means for you. Maybe it means like not sticking to, only putting out a certain format of content. So only doing video, on YouTube. Maybe you're like us and you're like, you know what? We're going to do video and podcast, and we're going to do both, and we're just going to figure it out and go from there. Maybe it's like totally rethinking the way that you create and produce content, and maybe putting out a new show on Instagram Live and, deciding, hey, every Monday at 9 a.m., I'm going to do, tea chat with Kim. And literally that is like a new way of approaching content creation and standing out and gathering those eyeballs. Or maybe you're like, you know what? I'm going to totally experiment with repurposing my content and just creating little snippets on Instagram, IGTV or Instagram Live that I can then repurpose in other ways in different platforms. Start breaking the rules a little more. Like think outside the box, think outside the content box, and position yourself for, just attracting new people and just standing out and skipping the monotony and the routine and trying to infuse more energy and more fun and more joy into the content you create. Your audience will be able to tell immediately. They will totally vibe off of how you are actually coming off. And if you're enjoying the content that you're creating and you're excited and there's joy behind it, they'll feel that and it'll make a difference. So break the rules. Now, we already talked about stepping outside of your content box. I think that's so important, but I want to just fast forward real quick to the next one and just be mindful of your positioning. What does that mean? It means that in a place where we have so much exposure, right? The internet is such a vast, incredibly huge community. There could be some situations in which your brand could be positioning itself for very bad kind of PR. And I don't mean PR in the traditional sense, but just how people perceive you. So I'm seeing a lot of brands do this extremely well and just come at their marketing and their content creation with a lot of empathy and a lot of generosity and a lot of kindness. But I also see brands that are just poaching and being very aggressive with their messaging and their communication, and just the tone in which they create their content is very pushy and it's very slimy and is very off-putting. So I want you to position yourself in a way that's congruent with your brand. I think that sometimes we can get really excited about a new strategy and just kind of go all the way out to like the other extreme. So be mindful of your positioning, right? There's two kind of extremes that I'm seeing that are not necessarily the best outcome for a brand. Number one, I'm seeing people kind of go all the way, to the other side, as I've been explaining, and just try to just be really aggressive and just off-putting in that sense. And then I'm also seeing brands who are just giving away all their stuff for free. And that's not great either. It totally devalues their offering. And in an attempt to being kind and generous, really what they're doing is that they're lowering their standard and they're attracting the wrong client, the wrong customer, because they think that, it's going to be something that they're going to be remembered for and they're going to be really generous. There are so many ways of being generous with your know-how. There's so many ways of serving and showing up for your people that don't involve downgrading your value or kind of taking your brand and lowering that standard or how people perceive you. And that's a huge mistake. So I see so many people switch, their online courses to a pay what you can model, or people just giving away services that they used to charge thousands of dollars for and that were worth thousands of dollars for a couple $100, or like slash all their product prices in half. And that's really bad positioning. Remember, when you're lowering the price point of a product, you're telling people who paid full price that it's not worth what they actually paid. And you're actually screwing them over in so many ways. I would never, ever, ever recommend doing that for your brand, especially if you operate in the online space. And then at the same time, you are definitely attracting people who most likely are going to complain more and are going to create a lot of difficulty in your environment. And if you're a seasoned entrepreneur, you know that you can attest to the truth of this, which is that when you have lower priced products or services or programs, you tend to attract a lower caliber client and customer. So please, for the love of all things holy, stop underselling yourself, position yourself for growth. And that means really letting the market know, hey, we're here for you. We are going to serve you and be generous. But you can do that in so many ways that don't require you to lower the cost of your products, programs, and services. So create extra content, be available for people, host group sessions, create an environment that is enticing and rewards people who kind of stick with you. You want to show up for your people, but that doesn't mean that you have to lower your standards or slash all your prices in half. It just means that you have to show up and be present and offer them lots of value. It doesn't mean that you have to undercut and underprice yourself. So that's really important, all about positioning. And this applies to content in so many ways because content is a reverse engineered process of acquiring a customer, right? That's the reason why you're creating content. So keep that in mind as you create your content pieces, as you create your promotions, as you look forward into how are we going to establish ourselves and move into this like new era, or really just the rest of this year, because things are going to go back to normal. Now, one of my favorite strategies is the WIFM Rule. And really, it stands for what's in it for me. Too often I see content creators just creating content, and I see brands and entrepreneurs and business owners do the same thing. And I've done it myself. Trust me, it's something that we all fall into. And that's just putting out content that we think people want without really having in mind the whole idea of like, what's in it for the reader? What's in it for the listener? What's in it for the viewer? What's in it for me? And so if we're creating content and we're not using the what's in it for me filter, really thinking about, okay, what is the outcome of this content piece? What do I want people to walk away from or feel or experience through this piece of content, whether it's just an Instagram post or a full-on blog? Really thinking about, okay, how can I actually add value and create clear takeaways from every single piece of content that I create, whether that's inspiring people or educating them or simply entertaining. You have to have some kind of value attached to your content. It's how you're going to stand out. It's how you're going to really attract even more people into your community, and it's how you're going to change the relationship that you have with people who have just kind of met you, maybe are just now finding your content and are starting to begin to get acquainted with your brand. Now, let's talk about exposure and discoverability, because again, this one is so important. Here are some practical questions to ask yourself as you're mapping out your content strategy, as you're amplifying your content calendar. Number one, how can people find you? Is there a way that you can bump up your search engine optimization? If you're maybe blogging or podcasting, how can you really double down on search if you're doing something like YouTube? Or how can you get discovered on social media platforms like Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and TikTok? Is there a way that you can collaborate with others, right? Can you leverage other people's audiences, other people's visibility? And then how can you optimize what you already have? Maybe you have a blog post or you have a ton of episodes on your podcast that are really punchy and really great. Can you go back and maybe create, an entire compilation of your best episodes, or just go in and optimize your SEO so that they can get found and maybe they get a couple bumps in the search algorithm? All of those things are questions that you can ask yourself to take things to the next level. And then last but not least, how can you launch something new? Is there, again, like we talked about, some kind of new type of episode that you could be releasing, or a new segment on your show? Or can you interview some cool new people? How can you add value, build that visibility, and bring more to your content experience? Now, I mentioned some examples in one of my recent videos on this topic, but I love what Pat Flynn has been doing, for example, on his YouTube channel, where he's going live every single day to share tips and information and strategies with his audience so that they can get through this difficult time, especially for those people who are in the service-based industry or just have local businesses. He's really just being a great resource and just showing up every single day. And so he's created a brand new show. He's gone live for about 60 days straight. And that's a really great way of pivoting and thinking outside the box. And you could do the same, whether it is, again, going live on your Facebook page as a way to reach your people, even if it's just for a 15-minute check-in where you just talk about a couple strategies, or you hang out with people and entertain them, or you just chat about difficult topics, whatever that might be. Think about what you can start that's new, or maybe that you've been meaning to do for a long time. Maybe you've been meaning to launch that podcast or get that blog finally published, or just really stay consistent. This is the time to double down and do something new. Infuse that energy into your content strategy. Get excited, get inspired. Really look at ways that you can stand out during this climate. And it'll really pay off, I promise. But hey, if you are enjoying this episode so far, if you're getting value, if this is inspiring, it's giving you more ideas, definitely consider subscribing. We talk about business and marketing strategies here on the channel, just like this one. So if that's something that you're interested in, definitely consider subscribing and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on another episode. All right, so here is another great strategy to think about as you're standing out, as you're looking for ways to just reach a bigger audience and leverage this whole positioning yourself for growth mentality. It's to infuse your content with personality. That's right. I know sometimes it's hard to be yourself, especially when it comes to your content. This, for me, is super difficult. You can ask my husband. It's crazy because being yourself should be the easiest thing you could possibly do, right? It should be your comfort zone. But for me, I don't know if it was just because I was brought up in a very academic, professional environment. My parents are both extremely eloquent. They're highly educated, and they've taught us to speak, me and my brother, taught us to speak in a way that was educated, that was professional, and conduct ourselves in that way. Even though, right, that's not necessarily who we are every single day. We turn it on and off, but at work, we're very professional. So for me, the minute I turn on the camera, the minute I press record to do a podcast, immediately I switch into like work mode, right? I'm like polished and I talk about, all the strategies, and I find it super self-serving to talk about anything that's not work. I can talk about work all day long. I can sit down and talk business and talk shop like it's no big deal. But when it comes to just being me and adding like my personality and showing you who I am and just having fun with the whole thing, it feels so uncomfortable to me. It's like, oh my gosh, like why? People are not going to care. It's so embarrassing. It's so self-serving. Why would I do that? But at the end of the day, I know that people want to connect with humans. They don't want to connect with robots who just spit out information and just talk all day long, no matter how valuable that content is. You want to have a personal connection. And so I really want to challenge you, as I've challenged myself, to start infusing your content with more personality. Like, what is your thing? And this might be helpful. It was for me. What's your thing? Like, what are some of your interests and your hobbies? And how can you infuse that into the content that you're creating? Maybe you crack a joke on your blog, or maybe like me, you talk about your incessant obsession with tea on every episode. Or maybe you are just a huge comic book fan and you have, a couple inferences about comic book movies, or maybe your whole YouTube background, if you're shooting videos, has a couple props that get your people excited about knowing more about your interests and create conversations, right? They're great conversation starters. Really just infusing your content with something about you is super key. People need to feel that connection, especially now when we're yearning for that personal connection. So can you coin a term? Maybe you can coin an approach, a mindset, a perspective. It's really key to just have some kind of, value that you really believe in and repeat it consistently. Maybe that's your thing, and you can talk about how you feel and have that little piece of information. Like, for example, recently for me, it's been all about profitability versus popularity, right? That's the thing. I talk about it all the time. It's a saying that people quote, and now it's been a conversation starter. And so many people have reached out and wanted to just have me on their show because of that one concept. So if you can think about ways that you can stand out, that is a really, really good one. And next is to put your signature on more of what you do. And that is a little bit more intangible. So for example, if you really just enjoy, let's say, succulents, like have more of that aesthetic on your blog, on your branding. If you really just want to go for more of like a comic book feel and look, like change your branding, change your colors. Like this is the time to play and experiment and make it more you. Maybe you are well overdue for kind of a background redesign with your videos or your YouTube setup. Like do that. Like really think about ways where visually or just more of a branding perspective, you can just infuse more of what you enjoy and put your signature on it, like really make it stand out. For example, we've had the same 3 colors for a really long time, for several years, but we're always playing with like new fonts, and we're playing with like new ways of overlaying our designs, but the essence is still there, to the point where a lot of our audience like reaches out and they're like, oh my gosh, I love this new design, but I knew it had to be you because of the way, it looked, because of the way it felt. So great job with your branding. Like things like that really make a difference, but it doesn't mean that you can't just change things up a little bit and put your signature, put your stamp on everything that you do. I'm telling you, it makes a huge difference. It's one of those things that people don't necessarily notice right off the gate, but with time, they'll really start to associate with your brand, which is so important for recognition and for brand loyalty down the line. And so moving into strategy number 4, it's to double down on your skills and expanding your know-how. So I love this saying by Tony Robbins. It totally changed my life. When you're not growing, you're dying. And I literally say this all the time. Ask my husband, Chris. I have so many days where I think about, okay, why do I feel like I'm stagnant? Why do I feel like I'm plateauing? What is happening? And it's because I've stopped growing in one area of my life, whether that be emotionally, whether that be spiritually, physically, intellectually, really growing in every aspect and making self-improvement and self-growth an intrinsic part of how you deal with change is so critical. So in a crisis, this is the time to double down on your skills. This is the time to double down on improving who you are. And so self-improvement really is an incredible path to wealth, right? Earners are learners. And this is the time when a lot of people have additional time that they didn't have before, especially if you're working from home or things have just shifted and changed. You want to just double down on learning a new skill. It could be as simple as understanding how to create better content through watching, one of these videos or listening to the podcast or taking a new course or just investing in an area of your life to really up level, like reading books, listening to podcasts, watching videos, taking a course. This is the time to do it, my friend. It's going to pay off big time. And so remember, when you invest in your know-how, it's really the only asset that can never get taken away from you. For as long as you're alive, you are investing in you, in your mindset, in your skill set, in the way that you perceive the world, in the way that you think, in the way that you operate. So personally, I'm doubling down on studying conversion optimization. It's one of the first things that I jumped into action to do the minute this whole kind of situation shifted and we saw a huge return on that investment. So I know for a fact that if I lose all the things that I've built within this business, if the market changes and things, kind of take a different turn, I can take everything I've learned. I can take everything that I've invested in. I can literally go in and say confidently that I can start any business and be successful at it because I've done the work. I put in the time. I've sharpened my axe. I've really invested in my skills and I've invested in myself. And I continue to do that over and over and over again. Again, when you're not growing, you're dying. And Tony Robbins has so much truth in that. You have to continue to level up in every aspect of your life. So whether this might be the push that you need to finally expand your revenue streams or just go fully virtual or take your business online or start a new business or pivot your brand, really take it seriously. Push yourself to level up and really just educate yourself on the market, really think outside the box and see. This is important, guys. Take a look at how the economy is shifting and why. When you understand basic principles of economics and finance, you can understand why things happen the way they do, why there's so many layers of complexity behind the way that the government operates, the way that private companies operate, especially in a crisis. So think about what is that next layer? Why are these things happening? What is actually driving these changes? And your eyes and your mind will be opened. You'll be way more understanding of how the world works and why certain entities make certain decisions. So, little prompt there to open your mind because big things are happening right now. And so that gives me an opportunity to jump into, again, one of my favorite concepts, and that's profitability over popularity. This is the time to really think about what are the areas in your company and your brand that are bringing in the most amount of revenue and why, and how you can position yourself to have multiple revenue streams and really create sustainable growth, meaning it's great to have revenue streams that come and go. It's great to have revenue streams that depend on other people's success and other people's revenue in their own companies. But at the end of the day, you want to solidify the way that you generate income for yourself so that you can be in control. I can't tell you how many stories I've listened to from both people in our community, people outside our community, people that we just know in the local area who've depended on other people's success in order to make money. And so when their clients' businesses are hurting, or when their clients are hurting, they're hurting as well. I want you to be as independent as you possibly can with your profitability, and then focus on being freaking profitable before you focus on being popular. I do understand it, but I can't tell you how lucky I feel to have started in the online space before Instagram and YouTube was a thing. YouTube was this thing. It was just not as big as it is right now. Instagram barely existed. So you really just get so much perspective when you think about, wow, there's all these cutesy YouTube culture things like your monthly income report. And I look at these monthly income reports from these YouTubers and I'm like, oh my God. And they're YouTubers who claim to be business coaches, or they're influencers and entrepreneurs and they're teaching other entrepreneurs. And I'm like, holy crap. How are you making thinking you're making $20,000 a month and that's amazing when you have 500,000 subscribers. And here I am with like 40,000 plus subscribers, like barely anything. And I'm making 4 times that every single month. And you think that you're doing amazing things and people are looking at you like that's the standard. And I'm not putting anyone down, and I'm not saying $20,000 a month isn't incredible and something everyone should aspire to. That's amazing. But how are you not making more money with that many subscribers? It's because you focus on popularity. It's because that's what's driven, right, your entire intent. And I think there's real danger in teaching this new generation that in order to make any kind of sustainable income, you have to have this insane audience and that you have to focus on the long-term branding aspect, which I am totally for. But at the end of the day, what does it serve you to have millions of followers and not be able to actually profit from them? Or what does it serve you to have like all this massive influence, but not be able to pay the bills or expand the team or really create the revenue that's necessary in order to sustain a bigger impact and make a bigger change? It just blows my mind. Okay, guys, like real talk. The amount of people, and we have 25,000 customers. That's half of our YouTube channel, meaning literally if we were to say apples to apples, which is not, it's really not realistic. Like I can't say, oh yeah, half of everybody who subscribed to our YouTube channel has actually bought something from us. But in terms of like averages and percentages and perspective, if we put it into that context, that's the truth. Like we really focus on making sure that we're being profitable regardless of everything that happens. And that's how you stay in business. That's how you create sustainability. That's how you create long-term growth, because I am not in a freaking hurry. I'm the turtle. I am the turtle, y'all. I'm not in a freaking hurry to just be massively popular, massively famous. Like that's all well and good. And it's great. And it's awesome. And it'll come in its due time. I care far more about taking care of my people, about making sure that my company is being run in the way that it needs to run, and that we're fulfilling our responsibility to stay in business. Because throughout my 8 years in this space, I've seen so many brands come and go. I've seen so many companies just like erupt and then just completely die off. That's not what I'm here to teach you. I'm here to teach you how to be sustainable and have a business that 20 years from now, you can continue building, that you can say, holy crap, I really understand how to build the right foundation for my brand. I know how to run a real company and I know how to do that sustainably, whether the algorithm changes or not, whether I have a ton of followers or not, I will be okay. Really, that's what it comes down to. All right. And the final strategy is to take charge of your finances. Really understand where your money is coming from and where it's going. And that does not mean that you have to cut all expenses and prepare for the worst. Like we're seeing things change and really just for the better start normalizing, which is great news. But there's definitely so much to be learned during this time, and really just taking a hard look at your money, how you're spending it, and how you can better invest it and become a better steward of the resources that you have right now is such an important lesson, an important principle to really just take into account. And then, just looking at ways where you can kind of shift around the way that you invest your funds and your resources is really key. For example, here at the company, we've actually been investing in hiring and looking at, okay, how can we actually double down on the platforms that are really serving us in terms of advertising dollars, and pull out of the platforms that really aren't doing much, or exploring some of the platforms that might be a greater fit for us. We're just shifting out, kind of our advertising funds and looking at, okay, we love what Pinterest is doing with their ad spend and kind of like investing in that area, and looking at, okay, how can we get more of our ads spent on YouTube and on multiple platforms, so we're not only advertising on Facebook and Instagram, for example. We're also doubling down on our production value and investing in better equipment that allows us to create content faster. And so looking looking at ways where you can invest in your business and kind of rearrange your spending to support growth and support the goals that you have right now can make such a big difference. So take ownership of your finances. It'll give you such a bigger sense of control and peace. And you can also make way smarter decisions when you're just paying attention to your money at least once a week. Just go through your transactions, figure out, okay, this is how much we're spending. Keep track of your spending habits via apps like Mint. And I know that sounds like really annoying, but it's actually super empowering. It almost becomes like a gamified situation where you can reallocate resources when you see a good opportunity, instead of always thinking it from the place of like, you can't spend any money, just spend wisely and invest wisely. Really, that's what it is. And cut back on places that are just not serving you, because obviously that's common sense. All right, so I hope that you found this episode helpful. I know it was a little longer than our usual ones, but we had so much to cover. I just want to inspire and encourage you to continue moving forward, to use this opportunity, this time, as a place to get inspired, to continue growing, to think about the ways that you can challenge yourself to get to the next level, to level up in every aspect of your business and your life, to look at it as a growth opportunity, as a catalyst to getting where you want to go faster and more efficiently, and to enjoy the freaking process along the way, to take a step back and just be grateful for where you're at, be grateful for the resources that we have available to us in this day and age, and just be excited about the future, to be excited about the opportunity, and to think bigger, think outside the box, and really start making moves in your company to position yourself for long-term, sustainable, profitable growth. If you found it helpful, don't forget to subscribe to the show. I would love to hear from you as well. So here's the question of the day. What was one tip that really resonated with you from this episode? Would love to hear from you in the comment section below if you're watching this on YouTube. And of course, if you're an amazing podcast listener, we'd love for you to connect with us over on Instagram. Our handle is @KimAnnJimenez. Love to hear from you there. I love when you tag me in different Instagram photos, on stories, and show me that you're listening to the pod or watching on our YouTube channel, or you're taking one of our courses. It means the world to me. So come over, reach out. I do my very best to answer as many comments as I can and as many DMs as I can reply to. So would love to connect with you, especially now when we really just need that connection and that relationship. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Until then, un beso. And don't forget to stay safe, stay sane, and stay profitable. Bye for now. All right, awesome. Then we shall get started.